So, folks, we need to talk about, are we in a moment of the leftist movement happening? Is this just, a continuing prelude to something bigger, or is it happening? Is this happening right now? And I am so excited. Let's take a listen to the GOAT himself, Bernie Sanders, who put up a video 2 days ago saying, is this the political revolution? Wait, sorry. Is the political revolution we've been fighting for here?
Thank you all for joining me. In the midst of these really crazy times in our country, I wanted to say a few words about the political situation as I see it. As I think all of you know, our political revolution, our grassroots movement, was never ever about electing one person to become president of the United States, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else. We are a movement to elect progressives at every level who will fight for a government that represents all of us and not just the 1%. That's what we are about. And last night, I'm happy to tell you that Melat Kiros, a candidate who we supported, many of you contributed to financially, won a huge upset victory in the Denver, Colorado area.
Is he all right?
She took on a 30-year incumbent member of the House of Representatives, and she won by a 10-point margin. Her opponent had millions and millions of dollars in super PAC funding and greatly outspent her. But Melat did what progressives always do. She ran a strong grassroots campaign with many, many hundreds of volunteers, and she won.
Also, Naturalist Mind, thank you very much for the gifted membership. And, guys, he's old. And he, I also see some people saying, he needs to pass the torch. I would argue he is passing the torch. He's been doing that. That's why he's been touring the country with AOC. It's why he's been helping extensively to build up these up-and-coming candidates. And, I think that he is doing his best to leave behind a movement that's bigger than what he found when he initially got into office. And, he's done a goddamn ton. And I think he knows that his time is almost up. Because, he's old, guys. He needs some time to grill and chill.
When I look at Melat's victory, when I look at the election results in New York City that made Zohran Mamdani the mayor of that city, when I look at recent primary victories in New Jersey, Montana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, rural areas, urban areas, when I look at Abdul El Sayed's lead in the polls in Michigan, when I look at Graham Platner running a fantastic grassroots campaign and defeating a sitting Democratic governor in Maine for the Democratic nomination there, when I look at Peggy Flanagan's dynamic and aggressive campaign in Minnesota,
I do like Peggy. I know I'm a little, I know I live out a little bit about Peggy Flanagan, but I like Peggy a lot.
When I look at the huge turnouts for our Fight Oligarchy rallies and No King events, millions of people all over the country coming out to these events. When I look at a billionaire's tax qualifying for the ballot in California, which is no easy task. When I look at worker organizing campaigns sprouting up and succeeding across the country. When I look at public support for trade unions at an all-time high, I believe that it may just be possible that this country is on the verge of the political revolution we have fought for such a long time. Now, I do not have a crystal ball to tell you what will happen next, but last night and the last several months have given me hope and optimism, and I hope it does the same for you. It has given me hope that all across this country, people understand that given the dangerous and unprecedented moment in which we are living, we need to rethink, rebuild, and fundamentally reform the Democratic Party. We need a party that is not just in opposition to Trump and his disastrous policies. That is vitally important, and progressives are going to lead the way in opposition to Trump. But that is not enough. We need a party that is prepared to take on the greed and ideology of the oligarchs who now control the economic, media, and political life of our nation. And we need to create an economy and a government that works for all of us and not just the few. We need a Democratic Party that opens its doors to new people, new energy,
This speech is
and
about
new
as pass the torch as you can get.
I mean, kind of. I like it. He's making a very plain. He's making it very plain what the current state of politics is in a broad, bird's eye view sense. Like, he's not getting into every single race that's happening, obviously, but he's pointing out major and sustained victories across the United States for the farther left candidates who are unseating over and over and over again people who have been selected by establishment kingmakers or who have been, backed by these billionaire machines, and saying, here's what's needed on top of just this. It will take more mobilization than just what we see to enable these victories.
ideas. We need a Democratic Party that is truly a grassroots party, where decisions are made from the bottom on up, not from the top on down. We need a Democratic Party which becomes the political home of the working class of our country and young people, Black and white, Latino and Asian, American and Native American, all Americans. And here is the very good news. The agenda that we are fighting for is the agenda that the American people want. Now, I know that our opponents say this is a far left agenda, nobody likes it. Well, guess what? The vast majority of the people are with us.
That's the thing, right? Like, every single time a conservative tries to be like, no, nobody likes socialist policies, the second a poll comes out, people are actually like, well, wait a minute, by socialist policies, you mean my ability to retire on Social Security? Wait, by socialist policy, you actually meant, like, having health care? Oh, damn, dog, actually, socialism's pretty cool. It's up until finally people start encountering a need or the need for these systems, or realize that there was a need that they had that they previously weren't having met. Like, that's the thing. It's very difficult for the status quo system as it exists right now to defend itself against a very clear and obvious conclusion, which is that billionaires are exploiting people in order to amass these massive treasure troves of wealth and then weaponize it against everybody else. And that is pretty obvious to me. It's pretty obvious to me when a Walmart opens in a small rural town and suddenly all the mom and pop stores are driven out of business, because Walmart, with its economy of scale, can afford to undercut all of the mom and pop businesses until they no longer exist. And then once Walmart's the only game in town, they jack up their prices, they exploit all the people who work there, and they cut wages, they cut hours, so they don't have to give people
Quick
health care.
question: what makes Social Security socialism?
It's a universal program. Like, Social Security is typically considered a social program, and a lot of people will broadly lump that in with what socialism entails, right? At the heart of what I believe socialism to be is you need to focus on the relationship that workers have with work, right? And so I think that a key component is to put democracy in the workplace, to have workers own the place where they work. And collectively, like, each worker has a say in how that work is done, what that workplace is like, what the conditions are, etc. But I think another really key component of a socialist society is to reduce what I would call capitalist exploitation. And by that, I mean, I think that there should be programs in place to ensure no one goes hungry, to ensure everyone has a place to live, to ensure that people have the things they need to live in a modern society. And ideally, those things would be decommodified so that people just get what they need, right? And by decommodifying these systems, I think that ultimately we reduce the ways in which people are oppressed by the economic systems that we have in our society. Because exploitation isn't simply going to fully stop just because workers own the means of production. Like, there's still other ways in which power becomes abused and exploited. And I think that obviously part of that is by creating universal programs like Medicare for All, like Social Security, etc., to ensure that people have stability and can take risks, right? Like, a key component, I think, of like a worker-run economy would be that workers would need to have the ability to look at what they want to do and then to take a risk. And if that risk doesn't pan out, they aren't left penniless and without a place to live and unable to feed themselves, right? Like, I think in order to launch, more democratic worker co-ops, in order for people to take a shot at doing things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do, I think you need to lower that burden. I think that people should be able to pursue, be empowered to pursue things. I believe in positive freedoms, that our society should enable people to do what they've always dreamed of doing. So that's just kind of what I mean by what makes Social Security socialism. And also, a lot of people consider it to be maybe not socialism, but maybe a socialist policy would entail something like a social safety net, like Social Security, right? So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of a window into what I mean. Y'all understand? Gay is good? True. Cool. Let's move on.
Because they understand that our healthcare system is broken, it's dysfunctional, it is wildly expensive, and that we must pass Medicare for all, because healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. At a time when 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, the American people know that we must raise the minimum wage to a living wage so that no worker in America lives in poverty. At a time when corporation after corporations operates illegally by making it impossible for workers to join unions, the American people understand that unions are the means by which workers get protection, and we must make it easier for workers to join unions. And I don't care whether you're a conservative Republican, a socialist.
I like the explanation that socialism is just expanding democracy. Exactly. That's always made sense to me. Like, if democracy is good enough to, be the decision-making paradigm of one of the largest and most powerful nations on earth, like, surely it should be a great decision-making paradigm for, say, private corporations, or rather public. No, not public. Collectively owned corporations, And I think those corporations should be beholden to the people who work there.
The moderate or whatever you may be, everybody knows that our current campaign finance system is corrupt and that it is dominated by billionaires and their super PACs who buy and sell politicians. Everybody knows that we must end Citizens United, get super PACs out of the political process, and that we need to move toward public funding of elections.
Hell
and
yeah.
at a time when we have more income
baby.
and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of this country, We must demand that the wealthy and the billionaire class start paying their fair share of taxes. And right now, when you have a president of the United States who wants to increase military spending by $500 billion, if you can believe it, $500 billion more on top of $1 trillion, the American people know that what we have got to do is not only cut the bloated military budget, but stop these endless and horrific wars that we're seeing right now in Iran, in Lebanon, and elsewhere. The American people, from coast to coast, finding it very hard to afford housing. And our young people today are going to get their first home, if they ever get their first home, 12 years later than their parents. So what must we do? We've got to build millions of units of low-income and affordable housing. And right now, in the midst of a terrible and dangerous heat wave
Wish
right
my
here.
job was worker-owned, so maybe we could vote to stop working 6 days a week. It's driving me insane.
God damn, fat man. You guys deserve a full weekend. Thank you for the $20 dono. Very much appreciated. But Jack, have you considered America isn't the democracy? But it is a democracy! It's a representative democracy. No!
The United States, which followed the heat wave that took thousands of lives in Europe. We know that climate change is an existential threat to this planet. We've got to take on the fossil.
Capitalism equals profit over people. Socialism equals economic stagnation. I disagree. Socialism, in my mind, just puts people over profit. Which, by the way, doesn't mean no profit, just as capitalism doesn't mean no people. It just means we prioritize the well-being of people over making a profit.
Fuel industry, and we've got to move to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And I think every day, more and more people are understanding the dangers that AI and robotics have for our country, and believe, as we do, that we must make AI and robotics work for all of us, not just the billionaire owners of big tech. So I think there is a growing consensus that our agenda is the agenda of the American people, and that's why we are winning elections. So where do we go from here? What do we do? Well, short term, in my view, we must build.
Socialism is bad for America. Well, socialism has been really good in America where it's been implemented, like in democratic worker co-ops or in socialist programs, like, for example, Social Security. Again, people love socialism. That's a really inconvenient problem for conservatives. It's just there's been a very effective propaganda campaign against it since the Red Scare days.
On our extraordinary successes by doing everything possible to win the August Democratic U.S. Senate primary.
Socialism is the entire reason why we don't have kids losing hands in the textile mills. That's very true. Look up Mother Jones and the March of the March of the Children. That is like genuinely very true.
In Michigan and Minnesota for Abdul El-Sayed and Peggy Flanagan. So right now, within the next month, there are going to be two really important Senate primaries in Michigan and Minnesota. We've got to do everything we can to support Abdul and Peggy. And on top of that, we have many, many progressive candidates running for Congress, and they're running for down ballot positions, and we've got to be on their side and get their backs as well. And then after the primaries then, our job is to build.
You know, I know that this was not like made as a serious comment, but I did want to respond to it. Socialism needs to make better KFC. Unironically, if your concern is like better food, would food get better under socialism?
Turns out that the threat of destitution does not in fact build character.
That's true, Megan Fox's giant boobs. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Food gets better under socialism. Now, what do I mean by this? If you have an economy, right, that is specifically geared towards...
Thank you
so
for showing
welcome.
these speeches. We are hoping and working for a socialist inclusive United States. Safe and revolutionary forth to all.
Hell yeah, one-eyed weirdo. Thank you for the $5 super chat. But your food would get better under socialism. And here's why, right? Because under socialism, workers own the means of production, right? So what that means is effectively you have a new economy that is predominantly run by democratic worker co-ops, right? And what that means is you have created a system in society where people can go out and they can try to launch new businesses. And one of the most commonly launched types of new businesses is literally restaurants, right? And so if you have a collectively owned restaurant and you are then able to decide what the menu is, you are able to decide what do the chefs want to make. This is the mechanism whereby you can actively outcompete places like McDonald's. You can outcompete KFC because you can have a democratically run restaurant, and if it makes some really bangin' fried chicken, then everyone's gonna go get the really bangin' fried chicken over KFC. Like, I don't know. Look, if your concern is like what about the mom and pop diners? They would be more successful at surviving if the servers and the chefs and the dishwashers all collectively owned the business. Why can't you do that under capitalism? That's the thing. You can. And many companies have done that under capitalism, right? But here's the thing. Here's my argument, right? The data that we have on democratic worker co-ops as they exist right now in America is that effectively they do a number of different things better than traditional privately owned companies. Number one, the workers are happier because they have a say. They have agency in their working conditions. They have agency in the overall posture of the company, right? And number two,
Kobe Lane all the way, party face emoji. Let's
yeah.
make Minnesota a socialist utopia.
Clever Motel, thank you for the $5 super chat. I've really enjoyed my talk with Kobe Lane. Everyone should go check that out. Number two, workers are paid better because they get to collectively negotiate their wages with themselves. Number three, they are more likely. Queenie, thank you for the 1,000 joules. Number three, they are less likely to ship jobs overseas or move their company around because they all live there, right? So it's a local business that stays local, but more than that, they're also more economically sustainable, meaning that they are more likely to stick around for the long term. And not only that, statistically, they are more likely to succeed through the early years of running the business, which is the most risky time during which a business operates. And so you have just a higher success rate, both initially, and a longer longevity for these companies. And they are more economically transparent and willing to pay taxes, to support and give back to the community in which they all live and value. They are also less likely to take actions that would have harmful externalities for their local community, i.e., if they work at a factory, they're less likely to be like, yeah, I'm totally fine with dumping toxic waste into our local water supply because you got to go home and drink that same water, right? And so what we're talking about here is democratically owned and operated, a democratically owned and operated business model. Now, traditionally, the big reason that we don't have these everywhere is because it's much more difficult to get financing for democratic worker co-ops, right? Because when you have a privately owned business, if you take out a loan, the issuer of the loan knows that you are going to prioritize the profitability of the business, which means you are more likely to be able to pay back that loan, at least insofar as the eyes of the institution go when it comes to banking. However, if the state, which for a lot of the aforementioned reasons is highly incentivized to want these businesses to flourish and stick around, well, if the state were to offer loans that were attractive for new democratic worker co-ops to be made, that would allow folks to experiment with these. It would allow a proliferation of this type of enterprise. We'd be able to get more data on how to effectively organize these, and I think that would have a lot of positive ramifications. All of that being said, I do think that this is the way you can help push back against the Walmartification, the McDonald'sification of America, because I think that it's a reversal of the mechanism that put all those mom and pop shops out of business, And I think that over time, we can put mechanisms in place on the bottom to help formulate and create more of these democratic worker co-ops, and put in place mechanisms at the top to transition companies that are currently private into democratic worker co-ops over time. And I think given a choice between working for a private employer or a democratic worker co-op, most people would choose the democratic worker co-op. And that is kind of my working assumption and working theory. What you're talking about is unfair competition and monopolies, not capitalism itself. Capitalism will always seek to create monopolies in order to preserve profits over all else. Because the worry of the company, the worry of capital is not, oh, what if the entire economy fails? They want all of the money. The goal of capitalism, the win state of capitalism, is who has all of the money. So that's just kind of where I'm at. I know I'm rambling. Well, let's finish this up.
Build the strongest grassroots political movement this country.
Yes, that's why we have laws against it, or are supposed to. Yeah, but that's also the problem, right? Because under capitalism, where it's profit over everything else, when you have a system that doesn't meaningfully stop you from buying political favor, what you have instead set up is just a new cost of doing business if you get caught buying said political favors, right? And so when we do have laws that we can operate against these corporations, however, part of the problem of capitalism is that when you have achieved a certain level of wealth, you can effectively do whatever you want, right? And break the system, which is exactly what we've seen with Elon Musk. It's exactly what we've seen with these billionaire oligarchs that haunt the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. The problem is any mechanism you create to hold those corporations accountable, those corporations can break given time and money. And that's the reason why I think we cannot trust these privately held institutions that have been funneling money up to billionaires and trillionaires, I think fundamentally they've had their shot to show that they work, and they failed.
Has ever seen for a general election. Let me be very, very clear about this. The wealthiest people in this country, the billionaires in America.
You're talking about special interests? Yeah, but who funds the special interests, right? The special interest groups are paid by the corporations and the billionaires. And so the bigger these companies get, the bigger these billionaires get, the more money they funnel into buying off politicians. And I can tell you, as somebody who is organized, some of the prices to get in front of a senator or to get a phone call with the full attention of someone in Congress, it's almost laughably small. When you start looking into the stories about the political corruption going on right now in America, it's almost laughable how small the amount is to buy these elected officials to listen to you. And the issue is, and you have to think about, if a individual who just throws that amount of money can buy 10 minutes of time with a senator, well, what happens when a billionaire steps into the room and is able to throw that amount of money at that senator, for every minute of that senator's time? And that's kind of the problem, right? You and I don't have the ability to shovel $50,000 per minute at the campaign of an elected senator or who's going to be facing re-election soon. But billionaires do. These companies that have trillions of dollars in their war chests do. And that's kind of the problem, because all of these people in Congress have a finite amount of time in every day. There are only ever going to be 24 hours in a day. And billionaires and trillionaires and corporations can send their lobbyists to buy all of their time for more money than we, the people, can actually marshal to raise. And so, like, part of the problem is we've had decades and decades and decades to try and fix this problem. They've only gotten more powerful. And that's in part because, frankly, they've bought portions of both political parties. And that political corruption, that's something that isn't unique to America. You see it in every capitalist country. And you see it in Hungary. You see it in the corporate forces behind the AfD. Like, all that being said, what is necessary are the passage of universal programs and to transition from an economy that is primarily driven by these people who are openly robbing us of our democracy and our, livelihoods, and transitioning that power and ownership of the means of production that have made the ultra wealthy so wealthy into the hands of the people, because it's about time it got more equitably distributed. You see it in socialist societies too, like the EU. But the problem is, exactly. You see the capitalist attempts to privatize, like, the NHS, or you see it in like the ways that corporations push back against different worker policies in like Sweden. And universally, what is the check? I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the governments of these different countries. The check often on that political power grab, on the attacks on worker rights in those countries, the check is not, in fact, the political apparatuses at the top. The check is instead from the organized working people. The reason there isn't as much corporate exploitation in, say, Sweden is because they have a profoundly deep and entrenched union culture there, which, unions are just worker ownership with extra steps, essentially. And what I'm talking about with democratic worker co-ops is effectively the union owns the factory, and the union membership gets to vote with what to do with it. And I think that would be a far more resilient model against this kind of corporate overreach, corporate corruption, etc. But this is me rambling, obviously. We're so close to being done. He has like a minute left.
They have unlimited, underlying the word unlimited amounts of money to spend to elect right-wing Republican candidates. All right? We're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Money doesn't mean anything to them. Their super PACs are going to be flush with cash.
Yeah, by the way, Bernie, I think, was talking about this before the Supreme Court decision dropped, that people can basically just donate an infinite amount of money to political parties, and then those political parties can use that collective war chest as they see fit to fund any political campaign. So basically, and can coordinate directly with those campaigns. So things got a lot worse as far as political corruption goes in America, thanks to the SCOTUS decision earlier this week.
And the only way we take on that money is through an unprecedented, strong grassroots movement, which means that we've got to knock on millions of doors from coast to coast, reaching out to working families, reaching out to the young, reaching out to the disaffected. That's what we got to do in the general election. And then in January 2027, after we gain control over the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, we begin the process of transforming our country and doing all of the things that working families know must be done. So we got a lot on that agenda.
But the thing is, like, I know a lot of people talk about taxes. Oh, high taxes. Oh, the taxes would be so high. I don't think people mind high taxes if they see and understand what those taxes get them. Because right now in America, a lot of our taxes get taken up by means testing different systems, by outsourcing to private contractors that make a profit on top of the taxpayer dime, by basically allowing private corporations to basically fleece taxpayers. I view, by the way, the over imprisonment of people in America as a form of this. It's basically mass corporate welfare where you are giving someone to be practically a slave within our prison system, doing labor for private corporations for slave wages. And on top of that, the private prisons they get put in get paid an absurd amount of money per prisoner that they keep behind bars. And all of that is at our expense. And these private prisons have lobbied for decades in order to put more and more people who are nonviolent behind bars. And so what you have here is just this ballooning system. And by the way, now all of these ICE concentration camps are also privately run under the very similar terms, including, by the way, forced work terms. If anyone wants to be able to afford anything in the prison to make their life not a complete and living hell. And so all of this to say, I do think that if people actually saw their taxes, instead of being used for evil, to exploit more people, etc., and if people instead saw those taxes going towards beautifying their parks, making sure their kid has a playground that's safe and fun and engaging, making sure that you can get childcare if you need it. Oh, hey, your kid can go to pre-K now for free. Hey, your kid can go to local community college for free. These are things, oh, you got sick? Oh, you don't worry. You've got publicly paid for healthcare. You can just go to the doctor. You don't have to worry about being made bankrupt. All of these things, if we actually got them from our government, I think people would be happy to pay higher taxes. If we shuffled money around like it currently is, and just made sure the billionaires were paying their fair share, we could do so much more for people instead of constantly giving to corporations. I do think that there is just an argument to be made that as we spend right now, it is primarily to support corporations, and we can choose instead to spend in a way that supports working people.
Let's get it done, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
See you, Bernie. Bernie doing good work out there. And I wanted to just check in with Colorado's greatest newsroom. No Kyle Clark, though. Just to kind of link it back to Malat Quiros here.
The Democratic Socialist Malat Quiros' upset win over DeGette in Tuesday's 1st Congressional District primary comes with some looming questions. Will her win be the first domino in a statewide socialist movement? Our Spencer Socher looks into it.
I've always wanted to feel what it's like to say something so fresh and fiery. Someone pounds an air horn. Okay, that was sweet. But the constant air horns and dancing at Democratic Socialist Malat Quiros' election party Tuesday were for her, young socialist celebrating her upset win and what may come next. DSA! DSA! If you were the mayor watching the election results come in the other night, are you sweating?
I think if I'm the mayor, I'm going to be trying to pivot pretty far left.
Democratic political strategist Deep Singh Badeja is a Democratic Socialist of America member and worked on Quiros' campaign. Even after this one and similar wins for DSA members in New York, he's unsure if DSA's next target will be Denver Mayor Mike Johnston's office.
I'm not sure if we have a Zohran Mamdani quite yet. Malat Quiros, to her credit, is an amazing communicator, an amazing speaker, someone who has our values tied there and can really defend them. I think we would need a really, really strong candidate.
It's clear Denver's saying that we're looking for fighters. We're looking for people who are willing to fight, and we agree. I think no one's...
Johnston says Quiros' win does not concern him or prove he needs to make any change, but more a sign that...
I'm not concerned. I don't need to change, says man whose Democratic base is shattering underneath him. I don't need to ride anyone else. I don't need to ride anyone else's coattails into power. I'm already here. Why would I need all of the ground game of these socialists who just unseated someone who's been in Congress for 30 years? Cope.
Denver Democrats were growing impatient with complacency in inaction from 29-year incumbent Diana DeGette.
Oh God, so many people on social media have been crying that this woman got kicked out by a socialist base. And I just have to say, like, I'm sorry, if your number one claim to fame is that you were someone who tried to get Donald Trump impeached, congratulations for clearing the lowest possible bar in Congress. You know? Like, and number one, congrats on that. And number two, did you succeed? Oh, you didn't? Well, okay then. Like, this is not a compelling argument. This is not a compelling argument, and the reason she lost is because fundamentally, the folks in her that she is elected to represent, they need results. They don't need well wishes. They need results.
Talk to the same people in the supermarket that Malat talks to and Diana talks to, and I know what they're mad about.
I think it's all about the candidate.
Former progressive Denver City Council member Robin Kanich thinks Tuesday was about
for the work you do. You've helped me sharpen my rhetoric and to strengthen my political positions. Best of luck.
Hell yeah. Mino Stash, thank you for the $5 super chat.
energy, and not all of it was linked to DSA. She thinks for Johnston to be safe, he should look closely at what Quiros promised voters, stopping big corporations from billionaires driving political decisions.
That ability to identify with regular working people isn't going to be achieved with investments in downtown. It's not going to be achieved with, big signature projects. It's going to have to get more down into the daily lives of the people of Denver.
Both Kanich and Badeja think the mayor's office won't be DSA's next priority anyways. In November, there's a special election for an at-large city council member stepping down for health reasons. That council member is a DSA member. They gave the old sports cliche, one game at a time. Figure out who to put up for that race in November, and then after November, DSA could try to go all in on one candidate, if they have one, to go up against Johnston this coming April.
So you were at that election night watch party with the horn and the DJ and all that fun stuff. I mean, the average age there was like 30 years old. Like, she is tapping in to a totally younger group of voters that don't necessarily always participate, especially in a primary election.
Right, and those are the voters that the Democratic Party have been trying to get to show up to elections as well. Again, really, really young crowd, not a lot of...
These are the exact kind of people the Democrats have been trying to recruit for years, and it turns out they fucking hate establishment Democrats. Oh no. This was hugely disappointing. As it turned out, Chuck Schumer was unaware of which people were actually so aroused.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
Oh no.
Career politicians that we could see in that crowd. I do think it would be curious to know, we don't have polling on this or data that I know of, but Denver obviously has this reputation as a town where a lot of people have moved, young people move. If those people are now here and are voting in our elections, that's a different electorate, right?
She's going to make an impact, and we'll see what it is. Spencer Socher, thank you.
I love this newsroom. I like the local Denver news. Next 9 News. They do really good work. I know it's weird for me as someone from Minnesota to be weirdly like honed in on Colorado's local news team, but you know what? They're a damn good team. All right, I'm rooting for them. Now, all that being said, I think it's so important to see that these elections, they have huge ramifications both up the ballot and down the ballot. Malat Quiros winning now puts a lot of power and momentum and pressure, power and momentum behind DSA on the local level, but also pressure on already elected officials that can move them to better positions and better policy in a way that, like, I think that ultimately is incredibly beneficial, even if socialists lose their primary contests. It's putting those in power who've been too complacent for too long, putting them on the back foot and causing them to reevaluate whether or not they can just coast to victory. And I think that's ultimately a good thing, right? Now, all of that being said, I think it's time for us to talk about the other progressive, okay? And I know that this has been a bit of a long, meandering path for us to get here, but it's time to talk about AOC. Because, my goodness, folks, there has been tea spilled on AOC potentially running for the presidency in 2028. I have been speculating about it quite loudly. I have basically said, there's no one is doing what she's doing unless they are planning to run for president. Our story here starts with this clip, right? This clip from the Michael Knowles show. I'm not going to subject you guys to the entire episode, but here you go.
The leading Democrat for 28. I think it's got to be AOC. I know that's probably conventional wisdom, but I think the conventional wisdom right now is Newsom. No, I don't buy that. I think he hurt himself with his comment to an audience full of Black Americans that I'm low IQ just like you. Sort of bad in a couple of different ways.
How do you do, fellow?
Yeah. At least two major political gaffes produced in a single sentence. The major political gaffes I've had, it's sort of much less efficient than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think all
AOC more than Ossoff, more than any of these other guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's the AOC versus Ossoff thing. I guess the question would be, who do you think really has the power in the Democratic Party? And
Jack, did Gavin say that? Yep. Didn't look great.
If you think the answer is like Wall Street and the left of center business community, then it would be Ossoff. And if you think it's the universities, it would be AOC.
So people are asking, why is there an RT? It's because this, if I'm being completely honest, when I was trying to find the clip that I was looking for of this specifically so that you guys didn't have to sit through an entire Michael Knowles episode, the link that I found to this particular clip first was from one David Rubin. And very interestingly, Dave Rubin linked to the RT clip that was reposted by RT on their official channel on this, which I find, let me just say that if I was Dave Rubin and I was caught taking money from the Russian government illegally, I might not be quick to link to RT in my attempts to write up different political happenings. That's, I wouldn't do that, but that's how I wound up with this clip and why RT is in the corner, and I do think it's kind of funny, right? Yeah, Dave is really not beating the allegations. So, anyway, you have AOC, right? JD Vance, top contender for 2028, says he believes that the top challenger among the Democrats for 2028 is AOC. And of course, you also have, he's the vice president. You have reporters asking AOC. They're talking with AOC about different things that JD Vance has said. Here's an example.
To Congresswoman Presley's.
Oh God, it's so quiet. Why are you so quiet? Turn that all the way up.
TPS discharge petition that we saw here in the House, we saw Republicans come out in favor of the Asian community and their contributions to communities across the country, not just New York and Massachusetts, but Ohio and many other areas of the country. So when it comes to this issue, there's certainly a coalition that's possible, especially in places where the Asian community, to your point, there have been so many people openly acknowledging how necessary and valued they are. And so, I think there's possibility, but
Well, like the counter argument from J.D. Vance is, well, this will bring housing affordability if we kick all these people out. Houses will be cheaper, rent will be cheaper because the demand for that housing.
well, who's going to be helping repair your home? I can tell you long-term care is going to go up. The cost of long-term care for caregiving parents, healthcare is going to rise. You know, hospital workers. There are a lot of costs that are going to go up by these mass disruptions of our labor market, driven by pretty regressive and non-data-backed decisions that are coming out of this White House and this Board.
Thank you.
Sorry, the wind made it very difficult to hear what was being said. But are we listening to the phone recording? I mean, I don't know what the recording device was in that clip. In that clip. But effectively in that clip, you hear her getting asked about J.D. Vance and taking away TPS for Haitians in particular, temporary protected status. And what that means is that they will be kicked out of the country, right? And J.D. Vance tried to argue that this is great news because it will make housing and houses cheaper. And AOC's response, I'll just quote in case you had trouble hearing. Well, who is going to help repair your home? Long-term care is going to go up. Healthcare is going to rise. There are lots of costs that are going to go up because of these mass disruptions of our labor market, driven by these data-free, non-data-backed decisions coming out of this White House, which is true, right? We've gone over this, but like so many people in the care industry, whether it's medical care or elder care or child care, so many of the people in these industries are immigrants. And when you go after this labor base, it does mean that someone's grandma, someone's grandpa isn't going to get the care that they need. It does mean that there are capacity is going to go down, especially as need continues to go up for assisted living facilities, for nursing homes, for child care facilities. And that's going to have a whole host of externalities. And beyond that, it's just morally terrible. It corrupts your soul to actually see people supporting this cruelty, this wanton cruelty that's based on lies. So she's getting asked these questions, and I want to direct your attention to this part in particular. When she is asked about 2028.
J.D. Vance just said in an interview that he thinks you are going to be the leading Democratic candidate for president in 2028. What's your response to that?
I mean, I hope he is. That's what I'll say.
That he's a Republican nominee?
Yeah.
Guys, that smile, that smile, dog. That shit-eating grin says it all. Exactly. She could not have announced more clearly if she had gotten on a podium and screamed it to the world. The fact that she gets asked about that, and she's clearly taken aback, because that was a real smile, right? She was not expecting that question, and she let through actual emotion, and that was real. And then she realized that she had made the face and she couldn't confirm or deny, but the fact that she then responds, I hope he is. Oh baby, she's running and she wants a piece of JD Vance. She wants to serve up his ass to America. I want to watch it again. Take a look.
J.D. Vance just said in an interview that he thinks you are going to be the leading Democratic candidate for president in 2028.
I mean, I hope he is. That's what I'll say.
That he's a Republican nominee?
Yeah. Oh, God. Look at that. Look at that. So, guys, I want you to put together what we now know. Bernie Sanders is out there in front of everyone saying, yeah, this is the time. This is the time for the revolutionary spirit of a socialist movement in America that centers working class people. He name checks all the different campaigns.
It's a real dig, AJD. She's implying she can beat him without doubt.
Absolutely it is. And she's correct. JD Vance is literally one of the most awkward, unlikable men on the planet. Like, it's crazy. Guys, it's been like, what, 3 years? And I still, when I think about JD Vance, I think about him not being able to talk to people in a donut shop. I think about this clip.
Oh, look! It's Couch Fucker! You gonna fuck a couch, buddy?
Right here. Do not go past
Go fuck a couch, JD Vance! Go fuck a couch!
Like, the punchline of this entire thing is walking into the Shake Shack. But the fact that, like, it's been years and we know him indelibly as the couch fucking... the couch fucker. I almost said the couch fucking president, but he's not, vice president. But, like, I think about him as the couch fucker. I think about him as a guy who's so alien to normal human interaction that he cannot, for the life of him, order donuts like an actual human being. And he's just, like, guys, do you remember just last week? Oh my lord. Here, just look at him interact with his wife.
That's right. Today's special reader is my husband, Vice President of the United States, JD Vance. Thanks for joining us today, honey.
Of course. Good to see you.
That's his wife. Guys, you can't tell me that guy has the juice to be president. I refuse.
Also hand on leg there, honey.
Like, dog, that's a crazy lack of riz. That's a crazy lack of chemistry to have with your wife. And all I gotta say is that, yeah, I'm not surprised that AOC sees this man and says, oh, I can beat the stuffing out of this clown. Incredible stuff. But yeah, I do think that AOC gonna be running. AOC gonna be running, baby. You cannot tell me that this shit-eating grin. I mean, stop. Like, girl is running. Girl is gonna be the first woman president. She's running. And guys, if we're getting started off with a strong socialist foot forward here right now in 2026, yo, let's give DSA another couple years to cook.
He's more attracted to the furniture she's sitting on than his own wife.
I mean, that's true. That's just facts, Nathan. But, like, that's the thing, guys. 2 more years from now, people aren't going to be doing better. Like, Donald Trump's policies are going to continue taking their toll. People are going to be pissed. Is she even 35? Yep. Guys, she's going to run. I think she's going to run. Like, I don't know. Like, I know that there's a bunch of arguments for why she should wait. But, like, that is the shit-eating grin of somebody who's running. All that being said, folks, if we get a socialist president, if we get a socialist contingent in Congress, if we get a proliferation of socialist leadership on the local level across the country, whoo! There is like a paradigm shift. This is going to be the closest we've ever come to getting a socialist in power in America in a significant way. Like, I've been telling you guys, I know that, like, the conventional wisdom is she should run against Chuck Schumer. But, like, guys.
Can't wait for AOC to open up the Strait of Hormuz in 2029.
Yeah, bring our boys home. All right, bring our boys home, AOC. Kirknay, thank you for the $10 super
We're
chat.
already staring down the barrel of the worst wheat harvest in 150 years of U.S. agriculture.
Yep.
It's gonna be bad for Trump in 2 more years.
Yeah, the super El Nino is not going to help things in the short term here. But goddamn, like, if we get a socialist in the White House, literally anything is possible. Literally, like, our opportunity window, like the Overton window, has shifted so far that we are going to be able to talk about, like, reforming the court and nullification rules for the Roberts Court. Like, we're gonna be able to do so much. We could get Medicaid for all. We could get all this shit. And having that access to the bully pulpit in Congress, in both houses of Congress, or the House and the Senate, rather, and in the presidency and in Zoran Mamdani, like, the socialist push is gonna be real. Yo, if Mexico can do it, we can get a woman elected in America. I believe. I mean, running for Chuck Schumer's seat does make the most logical sense.
Not to mention Ringworm is gonna asterisk
Screwworm.
beef prices, immigrant deportations are screwing the general economy. Trump is failin' so bad.
Yeah, Screwworm is gonna screw all of us. But all that being said, like, I do think while it makes more sense for her to run against Chuck Schumer, or the conventional wisdom is that it makes more sense, there's no one else in the field right now as comparably pro-working class as AOC. There just isn't. You know, we have a lot of folks who I think mean well, but aren't willing to go far enough for the kind of transformative change that we need to see for things to be set right in America. We cannot afford another Joe Biden pro-status quo presidency. We can't do it. Like, this is the window open to her right now, and I think if she takes advantage of it, she has one of the best shots in the past century of getting a socialist elected. All that being said, folks, look, I don't think American exceptionalism means that we are exceptional and that we're the only nation on earth that can't elect a woman. I don't believe in that. Anyway, folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know if you are convinced by that smile, because goddamn, I'm convinced by that smile. All right? And folks, I would also very much, for obvious reasons related to this entire thing, please join your local Dems, join your local DSA. All right? I believe that these are our most effective vehicles going into 2026 and 2028 for real political change, and I think that we need to take advantage of that window while we can. We are at a moment of crisis. That crisis is only going to intensify as we go forward. And we need to be able to set things right.
If we can't afford another Biden, and I agree, given the choice of Vance or Newsom, I would vote for Vance.
No, that's stupid. No. Just, how about instead of being forced to do a stupid choice, let's just get a good person elected instead. A good person nominated. No, like, no. Bro. Anyway, join your local Dems, join your local DSA. Make your local Dems more pro-working class, kick out those corporate Dems. And folks, make your DSA more effective. Now is the time to get involved and make your DSA even more effective than it is right now. All right? And last but not least, folks, you need help doing that. Join our Discord. Reach out to Gamergy for help joining your local DSA. Reach out to Dragonfly for help joining your local Dems. And last but not least, for real this time, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is comfortable, sexy lingerie that's non-tucking. Go check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the doobly-doo. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics Tuesdays being plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.